Hello, today's the feast day of Teresa of Avila. She once wrote that God had spoken to her and said, "If you seek me, look inside you." And she knew what she was speaking about because she devoted her whole life to trying to get close to God and to feel a sense of unity with God. She lived at a time when the monastic movement had become very estranged from its origins. Monasteries and convents were very busy places, always humming with activity and visitors. And she set up her own branch, which was devoted entirely to focusing on God, trying to provide a space, a quietness in which that kind of focus could be developed. In her autobiography, she writes about one of the ways of praying that she talks about, and she talks about many in her different writings. But she talks about the four stages, the devotion of the heart, which is when you just sit and allow yourself to be in the presence of God, the devotion of peace, which is that ability that we sometimes find we're able to achieve of handing over our will and our desires to God and letting God take us over and do with us as God wishes. The devotion of the mind, which is when we set aside our reasoning powers and just allow ourselves to be accepting of God, not question too much all the difficulties about faith, but just to accept God and what God offers us. This is my interpretation of what she says, of course. The fourth stage is a much more difficult one. It's the devotion of ecstasy, when we are taken out of our bodies, when we become capable of losing ourselves completely in the presence of God, so that we're not aware of anything physical at all. That's not something I've ever achieved, and I guess it's a gift rather than something that we can earn or work towards. But the other three, the idea of focusing on God, on Jesus, of surrendering our will and of allowing ourselves to accept God's will in the world and for us, that seems to me to be a very good way of entering into prayer. And it's a way that I think we would, those of us who are Christians who want to get closer to God, could usefully follow. And so I think to take up her challenge, to make space, to focus on God on a regular basis is something worth doing. And she talks about that first stage of the devotion of the heart, when we just allow ourselves to be in God's presence, as being a bit like being with a friend. You know, that when you're with a friend, you're interested in them, you want to talk to them, you want to hear what they've got to say, you want to just enjoy their presence, their company. And that's what it's like, she says, when you try and start off the process of being with God and focusing perhaps on Jesus. And that's a good beginning, I think, for all of us. So whatever stage of faith we've reached, it enables us to open ourselves to God and to see then what happens, and see if we can open our lives a bit more fully to God than perhaps we otherwise would, and therefore perhaps experience God a bit more richly than we otherwise would. Worth a try, and something that I have tried to do over many years, as most of us have who are Christians. And it's never something which you come away from feeling, oh yes, now I've mastered that. It's always a process of growing and developing. We never really think we know how to pray, but we always should be willing to have a go at it. And perhaps if Teresa of Avila has some ideas that will help us, so much the better.